I don't think that we can ever have peace with my family unless the truth is out.
Welcome back to Royal Today, the only place where we peel back the gilded curtain to reveal the raw, unfiltered truth about the British royal family. Today, brace yourselves, we are not just talking about another family feud, we are witnessing the absolute nuclear meltdown of the Sussex marriage. For years, secrets have been buried deep within the palace archives, but today, the dam has finally broken. First, we have the explosive evidence that has Prince Harry losing his mind, a dark, hidden past between Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew that has reportedly been exposed by Piers Morgan, shattering Harry's entire world. But the fallout doesn't end there. While the world reels from this scandal, the royal family has quietly made their most ruthless move yet. We have received reports that Princess Anne has activated a surgical protocol to strip Meghan of her custody rights and bringing Archie and Lilibet back to British soil permanently. Did Harry finally turn on Meghan after learning the truth about Andrew? And are the children really safe behind palace walls while Meghan parties in Dubai? Do not click away. We are opening the secret dossier right now. Breaking. The world may think it knows the Sussex story, but behind closed doors, events unfolded that few could have predicted. A custody agreement was quietly signed, and with it, Prince Harry allegedly exposed secrets linking Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew, sending ripples through royal circles worldwide. But what compelled Harry to take this step, and why reveal such explosive information now, knowing it could forever alter every relationship involved? The moment the custody agreement was formalized, shockwaves quietly reverberated. Buckingham Palace confirmed that Archie, 7, and Lilibet, 5, had been removed from Meghan Markle's custodial influence. It wasn't a rumor, gossip, or a sudden mood swing. It was a legal reality. The trigger was a sealed brief delivered at dawn to Windsor Castle, containing information so serious it could no longer remain private. Days earlier, a California school administrator had flagged a major concern. Meghan had withdrawn both children from their private Santa Barbara schools without notifying any UK liaison, mediator, or welfare official. No replacement school, no spring enrollment, just silence. Inside Windsor, the reaction was immediate. Princess Anne convened a crisis summit on February the 2nd, presenting a red folder labelled Immediate Custodian Breach, directly to King Charles. The documents detailed cancelled paediatric appointments, blocked communications, and the shocking dissolution of a $3 million trust fund intended for the children's UK education. The most chilling revelation, according to palace sources, was a confidential intelligence memo suggesting Meghan had been preparing a maternal disassociation, not to negotiate custody, but to sever connections entirely. NDAs with a Dubai financier reportedly demanded erasing family ties before launching a solo brand. Archewell contracts flagged instructions to remove the children from Netflix and Spotify marketing. One senior official described it bluntly: not co-parenting, not a dispute, an identity removal. Prince William reportedly left a summit in Manchester upon seeing the red folder. For him, the issue was no longer Meghan. It was about the survival of 2 children, emotionally, legally, and historically. Within hours, Duchess Sophie of Edinburgh activated emergency custodial safeguard protocols. A formal case file was opened, marking the first time in modern history that structural guardianship was considered not to punish a parent, but to prevent royal children from vanishing into a private or commercial agenda. At 10:10 a.m., Prince William invoked Appendix 4 of the Royal Succession Stabilisation Act, a clause untouched since Edward VII. The council vote was unanimous, drawing a line that Meghan's world could never cross. The palace's response was precise, silent, and unyielding, signalling that the children's welfare had become a non-negotiable priority. By mid-afternoon, the Crown activated what insiders call a three-step Royal Firewall. Step 1, a passport freeze, meaning Archie and Lilibet could not leave the UK without dual authorization from Princess Anne and the Crown's Child Welfare Council. Step 2, an image shield, enforced under the Windsor Privacy Act of 2023, locked down commercial use of the children's names, likenesses, or Sussex branding for 5 years. Step 3, the Royal Restoration Fund, a $12 million trust designed to provide private education, emotional support, and reintegration care. These measures weren't symbolic, they were absolute, surgical, and immediate. Even Harry's requests for temporary custody were blocked on technical grounds. The palace acted not out of anger, but procedure, history, and responsibility. Yet, even as the lockdown secured the children's safety, a new layer of the crisis emerged. Reports suggest Meghan's withdrawal of Archie and Lilibet wasn't just a parental choice. It was allegedly part of a media strategy positioning the children as anchors for a docu-series pitched to a Middle Eastern production house. Sources claim plans included school appearances, branded wardrobes, and a luxury children's product line tied to Princess Diana's legacy. The palace allegedly viewed this as an attempt to commercialize the children, turning personal history into global assets. A sealed dossier reportedly detailed attempts to trademark their names, PR strategies, and potential monetization projects, all aimed at branding the children internationally. By February the 2nd, the Crown's lockdown neutralized these plans entirely. The palace's message was unmistakable: the children's welfare supersedes fame, branding, or profit. The Crown's response escalated further with the invocation of an Edwardian Protocol granting the palace formal guardianship over Archie and Lilibet. Custody, travel, and financial oversight were now firmly under royal authority. Trust funds were frozen or restructured, media and branding deals nullified. Harry, reportedly in Monte Carlo, faced legal and procedural barriers that left him sidelined. The palace emphasized that the actions weren't personal, they were constitutional, procedural, and protective. Princess Catherine, Princess Anne, and Prince Edward assumed formal oversight, including supervision of therapy, education, and daily welfare. One royal aide described the atmosphere as calm but tightly controlled, with the children adapting better than anyone anticipated. Behind the scenes, the palace was also conducting a digital and commercial sweep. Spotify and Netflix removed references to the children. Sussex Foundation files underwent audits in the UK and the US, neutralizing any pending commercial ventures or media exposure. Every social media post, every thumbnail, every minor reference to Archie or Lilibet was evaluated and, where necessary, silenced. The Crown's approach was surgical, quiet, and absolute, letting the world think it was business as usual while securing control over the children's identities and futures. Amid all this, the children themselves began to send a subtle but unmistakable message. Princess Lilibet, under supervision, held Princess Charlotte's hand in a Windsor rose garden, a small act that palace insiders say communicated a powerful statement. The children are not currency, not stories for sale. Lilibet carried a hand-stitched journal embroidered with the word hope, signaling agency and resilience in the midst of chaos. Archie, reportedly reserved yet observant, was guided through routines ensuring emotional stability. These small acts, carefully overseen by Catherine and Anne, became a silent declaration. The children would not be leveraged, exploited, or turned into media tools. Their presence alone conveyed authority, restraint, and historical weight. By the time these measures took full effect, the palace had orchestrated a quiet but comprehensive counterstrike. Custody, guardianship, travel, digital identity, and financial oversight were all secured. Every move from Meghan's alleged media strategy was neutralized. Every potential risk to the children's welfare was blocked. Even the smallest gestures, the photographs, the charity appearances, the hand-in-hand images, carried layers of meaning carefully designed to reinforce control and stability. Even as headlines screamed separation and speculation, the palace's approach remained methodical and invisible. Sources claim that every action taken by the Crown in early February 2026 was part of a carefully mapped strategy that combined legal authority, psychological insight, and historical precedent. It wasn't just about blocking Meghan or managing Harry, it was about future-proofing the children's lives in a way that ensured stability, no matter how public pressure, celebrity influence, or media intrusion escalated. Within Windsor, the mood was tense but calculated. Princess Anne reportedly convened multiple emergency briefings with senior advisors, legal officers, and child welfare experts. One insider described the meetings as surgical in their precision, with every scenario weighed and preemptively neutralized. Every detail, from how school routines were adjusted to how social interactions would be monitored, was scrutinized. Even minor discrepancies in schedules or inconsistencies in private communications were noted and addressed immediately. The Crown's message was consistent. No margin of error would be tolerated when it came to protecting Archie and Lilibet. Meanwhile, Harry's position became increasingly precarious. Sources suggest he had been hoping to negotiate private access with the children, aiming to maintain a bond while avoiding media scrutiny. But royal authorities reportedly imposed strict procedural boundaries. Travel restrictions, residency complications, and formal legal custody barriers meant that any direct contact would now require Crown authorization. One insider described Harry's predicament as isolated and emotionally raw. He's seeing a system he once mocked, now operating with unassailable authority over his family. Across the Atlantic, Meghan's carefully curated image began to fray. Reports claim she continued her media appearances and content production, promoting a lifestyle and personal brand that projected independence, glamour, and control. A luxury yacht in Doha, champagne in hand, a Middle Eastern media financier by her side, all seemingly signals of triumph. But palace sources say these moves were interpreted internally as absence and detachment, evidence that the children's welfare might not be prioritized over personal branding. In other words, Meghan's public portrayal of freedom clashed dramatically with the Crown's private assessments of safety and stability. The digital battlefield became increasingly crucial. Insider reports describe a sweeping audit of online platforms, streaming services, and social media channels. All uses of the children's likenesses, names, and personal stories were removed or blocked. Thumbnails, posts, and metadata tied to Netflix, Spotify, and private brand deals vanished quietly without public announcements. Even minor social media mentions were scrutinized and eliminated if they risked compromising the children's privacy or security. Observers described the speed of these actions as almost surgical, emphasizing that Windsor's influence extended across borders without ever needing to step into the public spotlight. And yet, the most telling moves weren't legal or digital, they were human. Catherine reportedly took on a role of unparalleled influence, supervising Lilibet's therapy sessions, education, and daily routines. One nanny described Catherine as combining calm authority with a meticulous attention to emotional detail, ensuring the child's resilience amidst intense upheaval. Lilibet's subtle actions, holding Charlotte's hand, carrying the Hope Journal, were reportedly part of a larger plan to give children agency within a highly controlled environment. Every small gesture became a quiet message. They were neither assets nor instruments for media leverage. Meanwhile, Archie, while less publicly visible, reportedly displayed an understanding beyond his years. Sources claim he recognized the gravity of the adult world around him, adjusting quietly to routines, supervision, and restricted media exposure. Royal aides described him as thoughtful and observant, the kind of child absorbing the stakes without needing to vocalize them. His silence, insiders say, became another layer of subtle communication. The Crown was winning not through confrontation, but through protective structure. Even Hollywood's response was subdued in comparison. Netflix reportedly paused negotiations with Meghan, citing risk assessment and the uncertain involvement of minor children in commercial ventures. Talent agents stepped back quietly, while media partners re-evaluated planned projects tied to Sussex branding. The shift was not dramatic, but deliberate. Those who sought to exploit the children's story found doors quietly closing around them. In London, Windsor's operations continued in silence. Photographs of Charlotte and Lilibet circulating through carefully staged settings became symbolic communications, reinforcing control and stability without overt commentary. One image of the two girls in the Rose Garden under Catherine's supervision was interpreted by insiders as a deliberate signal. Royal authority and care are inseparable, and the children will not be commodified or leveraged. Even the timing of these appearances, aligned with Meghan's media moves across the Atlantic, was reportedly intentional, a subtle assertion that the Crown remained aware and in control. Financial oversight also played a pivotal role. Reports claim that previously established trusts for Archie and Lilibet, including an $8 million structure meant for independence, were frozen and dismantled after accountants confirmed they had not been properly protected through royal channels. Sponsorships, licensing contracts, and any ventures involving the children's names or likenesses were declared void under Windsor standards. Every potential avenue of monetization tied to the Sussex children was blocked, leaving the family's media ambitions effectively neutered without a single public confrontation. The palace's moves weren't merely defensive, they were also preemptive. Sources claim that Princess Anne, supported by King Charles, drafted protocols to counter modern threats to children's identity, including AI replication, unauthorized image monetization, and digital cloning. The intention was clear. Even as Meghan and Harry attempted to craft public narratives, the Crown was ensuring that Archie and Lilibet would remain beyond exploitation. This was strategic foresight, turning centuries-old authority into a contemporary safeguard. Yet, amidst all this structure, the human element remained central. Catherine reportedly nurtured trust, ensuring the children felt secure and valued despite the high-stakes legal maneuvers surrounding them. Small gestures, a smile, a hand on a shoulder, a carefully timed charity activity, became signals of stability and love. The palace's message was simple but profound. Legacy and protection are inseparable, and children must always be shielded from forces seeking to exploit them. And then came the quiet but powerful defiance of the children themselves. Lilibet's visible actions, Charlotte's support, and Archie's growing awareness transformed them from passive participants into symbolic agents of their own story. Insiders say the royal household carefully allowed this subtle form of agency, signaling to the world that royal authority isn't imposed by spectacle, it's reinforced through structure, care, and deliberate communication. Across the Atlantic, Meghan's carefully curated public image clashed dramatically with Windsor's strategic precision. Luxury appearances, brand negotiations, and media statements failed to shift the narrative. The children's welfare and the Crown's authority had already established the prevailing reality. Even as Hollywood whispered and tabloids speculated, the palace operated in silence, ensuring that every move reinforced the protective framework around the children. By mid-February 2026, the Sussex story had transformed into a cautionary tale about control, legacy, and power. Headlines might chase drama, but behind closed doors, Windsor had quietly asserted guardianship, restructured financial and legal oversight, and ensured the children's digital, emotional, and physical safety. Every gesture, from staged photographs to protocol enforcement, reinforced the Crown's unyielding authority and commitment to protecting future generations. The final shock isn't merely what the Crown did, it's that it did so without spectacle. No press conferences, no confrontations, no public denunciations, just procedure, history, and meticulous planning. The world may never see the full extent of the manoeuvres, but insiders insist they have permanently reshaped the Sussex narrative. Archie and Lilibet are no longer passive figures in celebrity drama. They are protected heirs, shielded from exploitation, and at the centre of a constitutional assertion of authority that could define modern monarchy for years to come. And as Windsor maintains its silent but absolute control, one question lingers. How far will the Crown go to protect its children next? How many more layers of secrecy, strategy and authority remain hidden, ready to reshape public perception and secure the legacy of the monarchy? The Sussex saga, insiders say, is far from over. But one thing is clear: behind the gilded walls, power moves quietly, decisively, and without compromise. By early February, the Sussex saga had become more than a family dispute. It was a constitutional, emotional, and historical assertion of royal authority. The Crown had made it clear that the identity, safety, and future of Archie and Lilibet were non-negotiable. Silence, procedure, and centuries-old protocols spoke louder than any headline, press release, or public statement could. And in a final, haunting reflection, the palace allowed the children themselves to be the messengers, demonstrating that legacy is protected not through spectacle, but through calm, deliberate, and unyielding authority. The Sussex crisis serves as a stark reminder. Behind the gilded walls of Windsor, power moves in silence. History, procedure, and duty outweigh fame, branding, and public opinion. And as the world watches, one question remains. What secrets still lie hidden behind those walls, waiting to reshape the narrative yet again? Harry lost his mind after new evidence came out exposing Meghan and Andrew's paid relationship. After being buried for a considerable amount of time under the foundations of a royal marriage and a transnational media empire, a secret that has been buried for 2 decades has been uncovered and weaponized in an action that has sent shockwaves through the highest echelons of the British monarchy and the carefully manicured enclaves of Hollywood. Piers Morgan, the most relentless critic of the Duchess of Sussex, has released what he calls irrefutable proof of a hidden relationship between a young Meghan Markle and the disgraced Prince Andrew. Morgan's revelation has caused shockwaves to travel through the entire world. What happens when the story you built your life on is systematically annihilated in front of the eyes of the world? The aftermath threatens to undermine not just a well-managed public image, but the fundamental basis of the Sussex's post-royal business. This raises a terrifying question. What happens when the narrative you built your life on is repeatedly shattered? The Montecito collapse concerning the detonation of the Sussex brand by a secret witness and a buried past. The first earthquake started not with a loud explosion, but rather with a digital ghost. A picture appeared in January 2025 inside the unstable ecology of social media, and it spread with the viral effectiveness of a disease and quickly spread over the world. It showed Meghan Markle, or a lady, who bore a strong likeness to her, standing on the deck of a super yacht while basking in the warm rays of the sun. Royal Prince Andrew, Duke of York, was standing next to her, positioned in a manner that was both unsettling and possessive. It seemed as if his hand was hovering in the small of her back, a gesture of casual closeness that, when considered in the context of his well-known shame, felt horribly evil. A cruel shorthand charge that revived long dormant and unproven suspicions about the Duchess of Meghan's existence before she became a member of the royal family. The hashtag #MeghanYachtGirl had made its way across the digital landscape within a matter of hours. In a stream of unbridled venom, the internet, which was serving as both a judge and a jury, declared its decision. Tens of thousands of comments flooded the discussions on Reddit, creating a virtual mob that was crying out for blood. This was ground that the Duchess of Sussex was acquainted with, even if she did not welcome it. The answer that came from her command centre in Montecito was lightning fast, pinpoint accurate, and fierce. The most fearsome media attorneys in Hollywood get together to create a phalanx. There were letters sent to media outlets all around the world that included sharply worded cease and desist letters that were filled with the threat of a catastrophic lawsuit. Meghan, who was visibly emotional and whose voice was shaking with practiced vulnerability, condemned the image as a cheap, photoshopped hoax and the cornerstone of a coordinated smear campaign. This was a masterclass in crisis management, portraying herself as the perpetual victim of a faceless, malicious cabal. The video was carefully staged and posted on Instagram. It seemed like the plan was successful. An investigation conducted by tabloid journalists revealed the truth a few days later. The lady shown in the image was not Meghan, but rather a brunette model who had been recruited for a luxury commercial shoot. Those who were in the Sussex camp let out a collective sigh of relief. As far as it seemed, the disaster had been avoidable. This, however, was simply the beginning. It was not the first image that was the assault. Rather, it was the bait. A reminiscence of the present. From his studio in London, Piers Morgan watched the drama develop with the exact same level of patient gratification that a grandmaster would have when seeing a chess opponent's opening move that was expected, a campaign that Morgan has portrayed as a personal slight, being summarily ghosted after a single encounter soon before she met Prince Harry, has been the source of his unrelenting war of words against the Duchess for a number of years. Since then, this personal grudge has developed into a very profitable public campaign, which has cast him in the role of the self-appointed defender of royal tradition and the principal prosecutor of Meghan's alleged hypocrisies. Before making his move, he waited for her accomplishment lap to come to a close. A teaser for a new podcast series, which was designed with the sleek and sinister look of a Hollywood thriller, was used to make the news. Morgan's powerful, authoritative voice did the job of delivering the charge over a soundtrack of heavy, suspense-filled music and gloomy imagery. Meghan Markle had a covert love connection with Prince Andrew throughout her college years, he intoned, allowing the charge to linger in the air for a while. In response to the statement, "I have evidence," the internet, which had just started to recover from the Yacht picture, exploded with an intensity that was far greater than the previous uproar. The hashtag #DoyMeghanAndrew scandal quickly propelled itself to the top of trending lists all around the world. As Meghan Markle viewed the teaser at her house in Montecito, sources claimed that she became pale and her hands began to shake. Morgan was not recognized for his ability to bluff. Through his decades of experience at the helm of British tabloids, he has developed a wide network of relationships. According to reports, the last scary sentence of the trailer was the one that caused her blood to freeze. It was with the weight of a definitive decision that Morgan proclaimed, "I have proof." After hearing the words, something even Meghan herself never expected, the whole globe began to hold its breath, unable to escape the crushing quiet that ensued. The revelation of a secret that had been concealed for more than 20 years had been brought to light. Link to Chicago. The first edition of Morgan's podcast aggressively described a 2002 tale. Meghan Markle was a teenage theatre and international relations double major at Northwestern University. The September 11, 2001 terrorist strikes were still affecting the world. All stories say she was very ambitious and wanted to become a Hollywood celebrity. She kept auditioning, attended every networking event, and showed unbridled hope. The podcast claims that attending a Chicago casting call for a small, independent production changed her life. Ghislaine Maxwell saw her when she arrived. One must return to the dark and carnivorous environment of the early 2000s to understand the gravity of this meeting. Maxwell was a mystery figure in elite circles for years before her sentencing for being Jeffrey Epstein's main accomplice. She was the gatekeeper, a smart British socialite who could open doors to unimaginable wealth and power. As her victims revealed in heartbreaking court testimony, she targeted ambitious young ladies from poor backgrounds. She promised these ladies professional advancement, coaching, and exclusive access to a world she was the face of, a horrific criminal enterprise that seemed lovely. Morgan's podcast claims Maxwell contacted Meghan after the audition and made false promises. She allegedly told him, "You have enormous potential." Having a breakthrough would have been her dream as an actor. She would have added, "I would love to invite you to a special gathering where intelligent young girls like you may meet incredibly significant individuals." Meghan met Prince Andrew at this reception at a luxury mansion outside Chicago. The Duke of York, a senior royal at the time, eagerly welcomed her, staring at her with more than polite attention. Andrew reportedly said, "That chick Meghan," to Maxwell after the event. "Invite her to dinner tomorrow." Morgan's sources described a succession of carefully planned events, exclusive museum tours, moonlight city walks, and intimate lunches. Young, inexperienced students would have found it seductive to encounter a real-life fairy tale. The audio shows a young woman being carefully vetted and led into a murky culture where strong men treated beautiful women like throwaway goods. Warning advice for survivors. The story takes a terrifying turn when it is revealed that Meghan received a simple brown parcel in the fall of 2002 from a courier. The envelope was sent to her Northwestern dormitory. According to the podcast, there were 5 glossy images included inside the package that depicted Prince Andrew on a boat surrounded by young ladies who were nude. Meghan's own face, which had been photographed at the very first event in Chicago, had been circled in red ink and placed in the corner of one of the images. A letter that was scribbled with the photograph said, "Meet me at Harbour Light Cafe, come alone." The source of this anonymous warning was none other than Virginia Giuffre, as Morgan disclosed in his second episode. "Do not let them know," he said. There is no longer any way to separate the name Jeffrey from the fall of Prince Andrew. As one of the most prominent and courageous survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, her testimony served as the foundation for a civil lawsuit in the United States that accused the prince of sexual abuse. The prince ultimately settled the case out of court for a reported sum of money in the multi-million-dollar range without admitting guilt, which resulted in the removal of his military titles and royal patronages because of her participation. Morgan's story goes from being a story about a supposed affair that occurred in college to becoming a scary narrative of near misses and grave warnings. Giuffre made a shocking revelation while appearing on the show over a video chat. His voice was thick with resentment as he articulated his thoughts. The statement that she made was, "I was the one who sent the mail to Meghan all those years ago. I made an effort to caution her." Having been recruited by Maxwell at the age of 17 and caught in a never-ending cycle of exploitation, Giuffre detailed her own harrowing experience at the hands of Maxwell. She claimed to have overheard Prince Andrew in one of Epstein's penthouses in New York, boasting about a very fresh actress from Northwestern called Meghan Markle. She described her as the sort of person who would run right into the fire like a moth for a few Hollywood promises. She claimed that she had overheard this conversation in the midst of a combination of rage and a desperate feeling of empathy. Giuffre made the decision to step in and help. This second girl was in danger of suffering the same fate as she was. It was in the specified Chicago cafe that the encounter took place, she said. Despite the fact that she was not quite 20 years old, Giuffre revealed the horrible truth of Andrew's world and cautioned Meghan that she was not being seen as a talented individual, but rather as easy prey. According to Giuffre, Meghan's claimed attitude was one of chivalrous arrogance that was chilly and dismissive. According to reports, Meghan responded with a narrowing of her eyes and stated, "I believe you have misconstrued everything. Are you simply envious of the fact that I am progressing more than you ever will? Andrew has been quite nice to me." Following that, it is said that she got to her feet and left, leaving Giuffre to sit with the images and the crushing weight of her failure. The podcast episode ended with Giuffre's final devastating assessment, delivered with the sharp edge of a long-held wound. Meghan Markle is a sociopathic woman with the most calculating mind I've ever encountered. The implication was explosive, that Meghan had not been an unwitting victim, but a willing participant who, blinded by ambition, chose to ignore a survivor's desperate plea. The confrontation of voices and stories. The public revelation of these claims caused the Sussex camp to enter a state of full-scale crisis mode. However, this time, the adversary was not a picture that had been altered. Rather, it was a first-person account that was both detailed and first-hand from a genuine and internationally renowned victim of the exact circle that Meghan was now being accused of having infiltrated. Those who specialize in public relations refer to the approach as a victim shield tactic, and it was a perfect example of what they term it. Within the span of 24 hours after the broadcast of Giuffre's program, Meghan was hospitalized in a private hospital in Los Angeles. An unnamed source provided the paparazzi with information that led to the acquisition of photographs of her in a hospital bed where she seemed weak and fatigued. Morgan's reckless and false charges were cited as the cause of the serious mental health crisis that was revealed in an official statement that was sent all over the globe. The story was soon taken up by sympathetic media sites who portrayed Meghan as a delicate lady who had been driven to the emotional breaking point by a cruel bully. It was a masterful flipping of the narrative. Piers Morgan became the target of the attention of the public, which had previously been devoted to the Duchess. It was a great tactic, but one that was cynical. In spite of this, Morgan, who had been involved in tabloid warfare for 40 years, was well prepared. In the following show, he made an appearance on camera while wearing a smirk of mockery. The tone of his voice was filled with disdain as he said, "I am well aware of what she is doing, remaining in the hospital, mental breakdown." He had anticipated her every move, and he was prepared with a counter-offensive that would not come from a high-profile character, but rather from the quiet, forgotten corners of Meghan's own background. He also said, "It is nothing more than a desperate diversion from the reality." An examination received from TikTok. TikTok users who go by the name Alora from Chicago uploaded a video that was 10 minutes long and shared it to the platform. This was the subsequent blow that came from a location that none had expected to deliver. A woman in her mid-40s who identified herself as Laura Thompson said in the paper that she was Meghan Markle's best friend and roommate in the dormitory while she was attending Northwestern University. She did it in a meticulous way while speaking from a simple living room, and she completely destroyed the official story of Meghan's college years. She was trembling in her voice. The first thing that Laura said was, she came to Madrid in 2002, reportedly to study Spanish. Her eyes seemed to be shining as she spoke. That was a complete and utter fiction. As part of her charges, she said that during this time period, Meghan, who was a college student and was known to be in a condition of financial despair, would disappear every weekend only to post images from opulent seaside mansions and exclusive parties. She added that this occurred over the time period in question. A crack appeared in Laura's voice as she made the next statement. During the course of our time together, we used to joke that she had a fairy godfather. At this point, I am conscious of the truth. When Laura confronted Meghan about the tales of powerful older men and lavish vacations, she found out that their relationship had ended. This revelation occurred on the night when their relationship ended. It was on those weekends that she vanished that Prince Andrew had people fly her out to expensive parties all around Europe, according to Laura. Her assumption was that Meghan's response was as cold as ice, and she was right. The aforementioned interaction between Meghan and Laura started out with Meghan saying to Laura, "You do not understand how the real world works. You are from a really small place to begin with. Put an end to your attempts to provide me with advice." In a short period of time following that, Laura, along with every other college friend, was eliminated from Meghan's life in a methodical way. Millions of people were able to see the footage once it became popular on the internet. The remarks that Laura made about the luxurious surroundings were promptly verified by amateur web detectives who instantly began seeking and discovering old images from Meghan's time spent in Madrid. These photographs may be seen on the internet. In the backdrop of a photograph that was taken at an event that took place in Barcelona, there was a guy who had a striking resemblance to Prince Andrew. The photograph was fuzzy. In order to put together the story, which was no longer only Morgan's statement but rather a mosaic of facts that looked to corroborate it, an international investigation that depended on crowdsourcing was responsible for putting it together. Betrayal from within. At exactly the same time that the digital firestorm reached its peak, the most devastating explosion that had ever occurred happened. It did not emerge from an old opponent or a friend who had passed away. Rather, it came from the core of the Sussex's own intimate community of friends and family. Samantha Reed, a woman who had been with Meghan from her early days on the television show Suits, broke years of silence. Samantha Reed was the one who broke the silence. Before she became a member of the royal family, Samantha Reed worked as a senior assistant in the field of public relations. In the middle of the night, she used a Reddit board that required her to maintain her anonymity in order to upload an entire folder containing confidential information. At the break of morning, it was there in every location. Images of encrypted signal conversations and internal emails that were allegedly sent by Meghan herself were among the papers that were shown as having been leaked. These emails and messages demonstrated the meticulous planning that went into her hospitalization, which was a result of a mental health crisis after Giuffre's podcast episode was released. There was a message that supposedly read, "Stage the admission tonight," and it was time-stamped on the day that the show was broadcast. Only images with a dimly lit background, there is no makeup present. Included in the package was a 23-page paper with the heading Victim Arc Full Rollout. This document was a step-by-step strategy plan for coordinating fan accounts with pre-written captions and influencing the media. According to the article, hair disheveled, the doctor's report must convey serious emotional distress. It gave the appearance that it was proof that her breakdown was not a real moment of grief, but rather a cold and premeditated performance. It was the ultimate smoking gun, but it gave the sense that it was evidence. Reed, who seemed to be exhausted, provided an explanation for her decision in a video to accompany the piece. During her conversation with her former boss, she made the following statement. "She is brilliant and terrifyingly intelligent. However, she is also the most meticulous image engineer to whom I have ever been exposed. After Virginia and after Laura, I am finished. I am finished. The scripts are too heavy for me to continue carrying them." To add insult to injury, the consequence was not only instantaneous but also catastrophic. The messages that were disclosed were reported on by each and every major news agency over the course of a very short amount of time. The hashtag #MeghanFakeVictim continued to be the most popular trend on a global scale. There were furious denials generated by the public relations staff of Sussex, stating that the documents were fabricated. Nevertheless, it was already too late to do anything about it. A number of digital forensics experts, each of whom conducted their own independent analysis of the material, came to the conclusion that it in fact was authentic. The spinning machine had suffered a failure that was not only irreparable but also conclusive. The volume that is the emanation of the mansion. A profound and unnerving silence descended upon the Montecito residents in the days that followed the occurrences that took place. A lot of brands have gone out of business with contracts worth 7 figures. In a covert operation, charitable organizations discreetly deleted Meghan's name from their respective websites. It became difficult for her to communicate with a lot of Hollywood supporters who had previously shown their support for her. With the destruction of the whole structure of the Sussex brand, which was built on a foundation of artful victimhood and inspirational resilience, the brand was reduced to dust. There were whispers going around that Prince Harry had surreptitiously returned to the United Kingdom with his wife and their children, a tranquil withdrawal from the ashes of their American dream. This was a peaceful retreat from the American community. It has been said that when things were at their worst, Meghan sent a number of panicked text messages to Piers Morgan, personally requesting that a ceasefire be implemented during the dispute. It was a caustic and critical monologue in which he detailed his own version of their history that he provided as his response, which he then read out loud on his show. "You constructed an empire by stepping on people. Now it is your time," was the last phrase of the speech, which meant that it was over. "Each and every one of these moments is due to you because you are worthy of them." The last talk was a miserable disaster. Since the beginning of time, people have been able to recall that Meghan Markle's story has been one of narrative control. She has shown an unequaled ability to construct her own mythology during the course of her career, which has taken her from being a television performer to being an international phenomenon. Furthermore, this cascading chain of claims has achieved something that the royal family and the British press have never been able to do. It has stripped power away from her. This is something that has never been possible before. This is the case regardless of whether or not the charges are determined to be accurate. In the end, she is now caught up in a narrative that was fabricated by her rivals, a story of ambition that was so corrosive that it reportedly took her to the very verge of one of the most terrible scandals of the modern era. She is currently trapped in this story. As the fog makes its way in from the Pacific to engulf her peaceful castle, the Duchess of Sussex is left with the shattered remnants of a damaged image and a future that is shrouded in uncertainty. In the digital age, when the ghosts of the past, once stirred, can never be completely put back to rest, this narrative has become a dreadful, cautionary tale that should be avoided at all costs. This terrible cautionary story has taken the place of the fairy tale, which has now reached its conclusion. Thank goodness. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.